last Friday. And so I'm just trying to start. It lent in an exhibition for my private job. Lent in an exhibition in April. And they asked me if I could try and do a bit of research to create a sort of trail around MacRosty Park. Oh, I think I should introduce myself. My name is June, and I've been asked to do a sort of heritage trail around MacRosty Park, where you stop every so often. You go, oh, this is lovely, I wonder if there's any history. And you look up this app on your phone, and then you get pictures and a wee bit of history of where you are in the park. This is the theory. For those people who prefer a leaflet, it's also a leaflet. And then, but that's, of course, all that part is the council. So that might be as long as a piece of string. However, I've set up a Facebook page, so everything that I learn at least will be on a Facebook page with access for anybody and everybody. And I'm hoping to just get, I mean, Facebook is all about, really about visuals, getting photographs. The history of MacRosty Park is quite well researched. I think Colin will agree with me. And so my focus is really to get memories of what people think about the park. And a little bit of the history, obviously, will always go with that. I'm going to put on my voice recorder, Colin. And unfortunately, I don't know if it works.
That's good.
Yes, I know, the good stuff. If I turn it to silent. So if my phone goes off, everybody, that's the reason why. Right. Let's see if it's actually going to go on. I would like, the plan for this evening is to listen to Colin's memories of the park and his superior knowledge of everything Crieff. I'm only telling the truth, Colin. I expect that most of us already know Colin. Once Colin has stopped his blethering, then Nigel will do a bit of music, and we'll maybe open it to questions. And me, Colin, and all of us, because actually I know very little about the park, can maybe just share our knowledge. Try and write down little bits here and there. But I've got a wee book put out there just for people to maybe write their contact, some contact detail. If they are photographs or anything, then maybe I could speak to them at some other date and set up online. If you do have photographs, all I want to do is scan them and return them. I'm not stealing them or anything like that. But they are for posterity. And I think that it's time that Crieff did really build all its histories. And maybe one day we'll have somewhere to put them. Our building. The park itself is something that Crieff can be really proud of. That is my opinion. And recently it's all been done up. So what's not to like? Over to you, Colin Mayall, local historian.
Good evening, nice to see so many people here tonight. This is not really to do with such a history, as more or less a ramble through MacRosty Park. Probably slightly unique because I don't come from Crieff, but in fact I've been going to MacRosty Park for, believe it or not, close on 65 years, which is a few number of years. Let me just tell you how it started, because I was born and brought up in the west of Scotland, south of Glasgow, and by pure chance, my parents are a very good friend, a couple, who came to Crieff to work in the huts away down where going just near the primary school, and he was in charge of, I don't know what they called it then, the sort of GHSS or something like that, and he rented a cottage called Barnshaw Cottage, which is in the little lane running between Comrie Road and Old Street, and it was in fact probably 1949, 1950, something like that, for the first time. I ended up coming there. We spent 3 weeks there, and I loved Crieff, and it was rather strange in many ways, because it turned out later that my dear wife, her ancestors in fact came from Youthall. I only found out when I started researching it, went way back to about 1650, 1660, so by marriage I've really got a Crieffite in me, and I've gradually sort of, that particular experience of going to that cottage was quite fascinating, because I do recall going to the first Highland Games. This is giving my age away. First Highland Games after the war, which was in 1950, complete with the Don Cossack Riders. And the star of the whole show was not the Don Cossack Riders, but the goldfish that I won in the fair. And it was absolutely, I must have been, I'll tell you how it was, quite young. And I can remember going back to this cottage, and it was really old-fashioned. They were renting it out, and the kitchen had a bed recess in there, and I was told I was sleeping in the bed recess. And the kitchen and sink was at the front, and I was so excited with this goldfish. My mother put it in the sink in a jam jar, and the blooming fish jumped out during the night and jammed itself in the sink. And it was the morning, I had a total panic, and she just said, just pick it up and threw it in the jar. Well, that goldfish, believe it or not, lived for 10 years. So I said, it's an attribute to the actual, probably the type of goldfish that's given or was given away in at the fair, but that was in fact the start of that. And I do remember the other thing that sticks out vividly when I was visiting that cottage. We did it for about 2 or 3 years on the trot. I always remember playing, this is not MacRosty Park way, I always remember playing the drafts in the square. There's a draft board there, and a long pole, and you moved it there, and there was a big box, and at the end of the day, someone put it away and locked up the draft. You can just see that happening nowadays. It's been flicked and stolen away, but nevertheless, that was another memory. But probably the most vivid memory I have is regarding the park. Now, I can vaguely remember my father teaching me to putt, which I was a lousy golfer. I gave it up many years ago. It gave me up, rather. And indeed, my absolute joy of the park was up at the weir. And indeed, my father had given me this large inner tube, which of course represented sinking of the Bismarck. And I used to go on that tube and paddle around on the area of the ground above the weir. And it was a fascination, and people would join, the kids would join in. And unfortunately, at ended the battle. I was trying to sink the Bismarck. I lost my balance, tipped off and fell into the water, and had to drag my way back, all of it, sure, half a mile, all the way back to Barnshaw Cottage. Now the strange thing is, I'll go on to the park in a minute, the strange thing is that a good friend of mine, I was involved with Crieff Rugby Club for many years, and a good friend of mine called Brendan Devine arrived an Irishman arrived from working down south, and he had bought Barnshaw Cottage, and it didn't ring a bell to me, the name didn't mean anything, but he said, he invited me round just after he moved in, and into their very well decorated sitting room. That was the same kitchen room that I had found the goldfish in. So when I told Brendan that we were sitting in absolute luxury, feet up, chatting away, and this was where this particular incident happened. So that was a strange bit in the past. But the actual park itself, we're talking about the 1950s, 51, 52. I don't remember the park in a tremendous beauty. I do remember the tea room that was sit up above where the bandstand is. And there's little bits and pieces, and really it was not until we got a dog it must have been about 15 years ago, and I was delegated to walk the dog in the park, and it was a Jack Russell, a long-legged Jack Russell, Parson Jack Russell, and very much a creature of instinct who just was incredibly stupid at times. But there was a very, very cold spell, and the turret burn had actually frozen over in parts, and indeed we were just at the the bridge and got out the car and walking Murphy, and I was nice off the lead, and all of a sudden he took off. And I hadn't realised that at that particular time there was mink breeding just below the bridge, and he actually broke the ice and went underneath to get hold of the mink. And I was absolutely desperate and panicky. Totally ignored me. It took me 2 hours, in fact, to get the stupid beast back on the dry land, and I had to explain to my dear wife why I was 2 hours walking the dog in MacRosty Park. I said, he was chasing mink. He said, but it's frozen over.